Now, the rest of the story. Scrub horses, they used to call them, third-rate wagon pullers. Back in Bell Brook, Ohio, in the 1860s and 70s, Sleepy Tom was a scrub horse. A familiar sight around town. Folks said that in earlier years, Sleepy Tom had been considered harness racing material, that he'd come from good pacing stock, but he had been trained too hard, he'd fallen ill, and ever since that illness, he'd been common scrub, the voiceless victim of one careless owner after another. Like the painter fellow named Millard, who once drove Sleepy Tom 17 miles in 70 minutes. The man would have driven farther, too, had he not been arrested for speeding by a Spring Valley peace officer. Anyway, it was Millard who finally sold old Tom to Steve Phillips for a cheap watch and a quart of shotgun whiskey. And what did Steve want to do with Sleepy Tom? Well, Steve Phillips saw something in that old scrub horse which had apparently eluded everybody else. Steve wanted to race him. Townsfolk guffawed at that one. Race that old glue pot? Why, Steve was lucky the horse was still standing. What was he anyhow, a dozen years old now? Indeed, he was. But he's got good pacer in him, Steve insisted. Pacer, breeding, and a ton of heart. What more did he need? So Steve Phillips began harness racing Sleepy Tom, training him the right way with fastidious physical care and all of the love that the old horse had missed all those years. The town boys would watch the workouts, amazed that Steve was actually taking it all seriously. They noticed Steve would talk a lot to Sleepy Tom, and sure enough, it seemed the horse understood. And before anyone knew it, Sleepy Tom was deemed ready for his first race. Plenty of tough competition that day in Jackson, Michigan. And then word got out that some 12-year-old nag, a newcomer, was challenging the most experienced field in the Midwest, so the race began with a lot of laughing among the seasoned spectators. But then Steve started talking to Sleepy Tom. From the high-wheeled sulky came Steve's voice in soothing tones and the words, "Go on, Tom, and win." They were in last quarter stretch when Sleepy Tom took off like a flash of summer lightning, leaving the field in the dust. And more incredibly still, this event heralded the beginning of one of the greatest equine careers in harness racing history. With his owner's gentle urging, Sleepy Tom continued to vanquish the best pacers of his day. He would become known as the kingpin of the original Big Four. He would shatter the world's harness racing record by a full second. He would be called even today, more than a century later, the Prince of the Pacers. And through it all, before and during and after each of those glorious races, would be Steve Phillips talking, tenderly reassuring, more necessarily than one might imagine. For you see, Steve was more than the trainer who had seen potential for greatness where nobody else had. Steve Phillips was Sleepy Tom's eyes. Remember that sickness that Tom had as a 3-year-old? It had been an infection, and it had left that horse that would one day race into the record books stone blind. Now you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. Here's an old joke that my grandfather used to tell me when I was a child. Two poor southern farmers were talking one day. The first one said, Gonna have to buy me another horse, I suppose. Second farmer said, I got one, I'll sell you. It don't look good, though. The two farmers agreed on a price and made the deal right there. A couple of weeks later, the farmer who bought the horse furiously told the other one, Why come you sell me that horse? You knowed it was blind. He replied, Told you when you bought him that he don't look good. Now this is an old joke. It makes me wonder if it came about because of Sleepy Tom. The race Mr. Harvey spoke about was held on Friday, July 25, 1879, at the Chicago Jockey and Trotting Club course. The Chicago Tribune reported that on the previous day, a competing horse called Rarus finished with a time of 2 minutes 17 3/4 seconds, but Sleepy Tom beat him with a time of 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Horse racing fans concluded that their times would be the best performances of the whole meeting, but there was one heat left in the pacing race. The newspaper reported the trotting of the preceding day had made the track even faster than usual, and after it had been scraped and planed yesterday, its surface was as level as the bed of a billiard table. The conditions were perfect for the race. The day was bright and pleasant, and scarcely a breath of wind was stirring, which made it favorable for the development of speed. The unfinished pacing race was the first thing on the program, and when the horses came out, they were treated with considerable applause, showing that the people regarded their performances with pleasure. But Sleepy Tom had stiff competition in a Tennessee mare named Maddie Hunter, whose driver had hoped to defeat the blind horse, which had proven invincible up to that point in the season. Just out of the gate, Sleepy Tom and Maddie Hunter were in the lead. At the turn, Sleepy Tom was a full length ahead of Maddie. At the quarter pole, Sleepy Tom was still a full length ahead of Maddie. But at the halfway point, Sleepy Tom led Maddie by 3 full lengths. As they made the last turn onto the home stretch, Maddie had a sudden burst of energy and began to close the gap. But it wasn't enough. Sleepy Tom finished the race a full length ahead of Maddie. The heat happened so quickly that it took the crowd a little time to realize that they had just witnessed, as the Chicago Tribune reported, an unparalleled performance. But when they did, there was a continuous round of cheering that lasted as long as the lungs of the participants would permit. Now, before the race, it was looked upon as a foregone conclusion that Sleepy Tom would win, but nobody looked for him to do a mile in 2 1/4 seconds faster than it had ever been paced before in harness, and 2 seconds faster than the saddle record. Sleepy Tom completed the mile-long race in a record-breaking time of 2 minutes, 12 1/4 seconds. Mr. Harvey explained that Sleepy Tom, better known as Blind Tom in Bellbrook County, Ohio, was blinded by a sickness. Isaac Dingler purchased Sleepy Tom in about 1871 for $50 cash. Isaac trained the horse in a dried-up river bottom track, which caused much injury to the horse. In 1874, Isaac trained Sleepy Tom to the point of absolute exhaustion. Sleepy Tom got a severe cold, which, according to the Dayton Journal, settled in his eyes and led to the horse's blindness. Sleepy Tom had a string of owners, but it was while owned by Stephen Phillips that Sleepy Tom became famous. Steve Phillips eventually sold Sleepy Tom, but details of the sale are unclear. Sleepy Tom held the world record at 2 minutes and 12 1/4 seconds for 2 years, and that's when another horse called Little Brown Jug shaved a second off of Sleepy Tom's time and took the record. In February 1886, Dr. Redman, the owner of Sleepy Tom at the time, sold the record-breaking horse, which at one time had been referred to as an almost useless scrub horse, for $1,000. Adjusted for inflation, that would be just under $33,000 in today's money. Just 5 months later, on Sunday, August 15, 1886, a fire broke out in a livery stable in Valparaiso, Indiana. 9 horses, including Sleepy Tom, perished in the flames. The cause of the fire has never been determined. In 1999, 120 years after Sleepy Tom's record-breaking win, R&B group TLC released a song called No Scrubs. In that song, TLC used the term scrubs to define guys who sit around and talk about what they want but never do anything to achieve their goals, basically calling them useless. The song went to #1 on the charts. Sleepy Tom, the blind horse who was thought to be useless, succeeded beyond everyone's expectations, and we can do the same. We may be called useless at times or even feel useless at times, but if we work hard with a goal in mind, we can achieve great things. We just have to have a goal and a little faith. Don't you think? I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And as Paul Harvey would say, good day.